Hello and welcome back to the Claret Blue podcast, sponsored by NordVPN. If you want to get your hands on the best discount code available, there's a link in the description down below. I'm your host, Dan Rolinson, joined by Jhon Townley for this week's Q&A episode. In fact, we'll be doing 2 this week, so stay tuned for the second episode later in the week. This one, though, is all about football matters and Leicester City. Jhon, you were there Sunday. A little bit of a brief chit-chat before we get into it. A nice victory, no?
Yeah, exactly that. 3 points in the bag. It wasn't by any stretch Villa's best performance under Unai Emery, and it was certainly the worst of the 3 games we've played so far, but it really doesn't matter. To be fair, when was the last time we played well against Leicester City at the King Power? It was...
Oh, specifically. I thought you were just going to say generally then.
No. It was probably the first half of the season that we went down when we were winning 2-0 and Carlos Hill and Grealish scored. I don't even know if that was in the same half, to be fair. I remember the goals going in different goals, I think. But yeah, it's not a stadium that we've particularly played well at, so I'm not too bothered anyway. I mean, that doesn't mean much. They are a newly promoted side, and you want, obviously, kind of assert your dominance from the off. And to be fair, I think Villa did that because Watkins probably should have scored early on. He then had another chance, didn't score, and then Villa obviously take the lead with a really well worked set piece. And yeah, set piece, and their second goal was obviously Jhon Duran coming off the bench with a fantastic header. So yeah, I don't know. I definitely deserved the win because Leicester aren't a very good side, and I think they had a 1 shot in the first half. They probably should have scored, to be fair, at the back end of the first half. The centre back let the ball come across him. I don't know if you saw it, Dan, and it kind of just hit his body. It was a great opportunity that. Yeah, Villa deserved the win. Wasn't vintage, but we got 3 points, and that is the only thing that matters really for me at this point.
Okay, on to the questions. Thanks. We've got lots to get through today, Jhon. First of all, from Sam on Twitter, who said, "Did the food at Leicester live up to expectations, Jhon?"
No, I went without, actually.
No.
Why? Yeah. It looked nice because they do it up nicely. It's like they got like different boards for different cakes and stuff. But the meal was shepherd's pie, and I don't like mashed potato. And I think I said that in the previous episode when we did the whole carbohydrate debate. So I went up with my plate, looked at it, and the guy was like, "Oh, I'll take your food voucher," because you get a little piece of paper to say that you're media when you go up. And then I thought, you know what? I'm all right, mate. I just took a bread roll, went back to my seat, really disappointed. And the worst thing was, I went to Leicester at 8 a.m. because I had to do something before the match and got a meal deal. And I forgot that when I was walking up to the ground as well. So I had a warm meal deal at about 7 o'clock leaving the stadium. That was my lunch as such. So yeah, a shocking day really on the food front for me, but I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it.
God, that was bleak. Let's move on swiftly. On to football matters from Nigel, also Twitter, who says, "Do you think," this will be a big debate of the episode, I think, "do you think Unai Emery will switch Watkins and Duran to start games and Watkins to be the one coming off the bench?" I'm of the mindset that Ollie Watkins is still the main man. He's still the one that the system is not built around, but he's important to the system working in the way it does. Whilst Jhon Duran is coming off the bench and contributing by scoring winning goals, keep it as it is, like it's working.
Yeah, that's precisely my feelings towards it. It's that Jhon Duran's impact for me outweighs the, I would say, risk of him starting the match and then Ollie Watkins potentially coming on. I know I've said that a million times, but it's working, so don't change it. And I say it's working as well for Watkins because he is getting the chances, he's just not converting them. And I know that's like probably a point to suggest why he should be dropped, but I would argue it's not, because we know he's going to get double figures this season again and hopefully stretch towards 20 goals. Last season, it took him a few games to get his first goal and to really get on a run. That seems to be the case this season too. He missed 2 sitters against Arsenal. He missed 1 very good chance against Leicester, which I thought was a good save, to be fair. And the one before that, he just couldn't quite get it into his stride. But once he gets that 1 goal, hopefully against Everton or Wolves, when it cocomes off his backside, he'll then be scoring 3 or 4 in a row. Like, that's just how Ollie Watkins works. And we have this debate every season at least 3 times, or maybe even more if he doesn't.
In the spells when he doesn't score.
Yeah, and we always just say the same answer. And then in a few weeks later, we'll say, "Oh, what are we worrying about?" And this and that. So I'm not going to say anything otherwise, because there's no evidence to suggest Ollie Watkins is now a not very good striker. Like he definitely is. So yeah, again, I'm also looking at how sharp he looks in each of the games. At West Ham, he looked rusty. Arsenal, he looked better, and he got 2 brilliant chances. I say the second one as well showed that he was sharp in the box. And the one against Leicester, he had good movement to get the 2 chances. So I'm happy with that. Against Everton, if he starts, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would be putting him as my first goal scorer because he's had a bit of a break. Is in with the England national team. I don't know if he's going to be starting matches. He probably won't play a whole lot. I'm not too sure, to be fair. But it's a different kind of environment for him to be training in. I don't know. Maybe that might help him in a way, kind of playing with different players and a new environment, kind of get away from Villa a little bit, where he's probably overthinking some stuff on the training pitch. You know, that sort of thing. He's probably watching Jhon Duran in training, banging in goals left, right, and centre. Which, by the way, he is apparently in training right now. Is an absolute animal. John McGinn mentioned in the mix zone afterwards that the way he's training now, like you wouldn't believe it. It's frightening. So yeah, he's switched on. He can smell that Ollie Watkins isn't quite firing, and Jhon Duran wants to start games. That's why he wanted to leave Villa, because he knows that he can be the main man. It's now up to, I know I'm kind of answering a different question here, but it's up to Villa and the players to kind of calm him down a little bit, tell him, you know, you've scored twice coming off the bench, you're doing your job really well, your chance will come. So yeah, for Watkins, he's probably looking over his shoulder a little bit and kind of doubting himself, but hopefully after a little bit of time with England, where it's a different environment, a different challenge for him as well, because now he's the one that's kind of trying to dethrone Harry Kane, basically trying to impress a new manager. That might be the catalyst for him to come back to Bodymore next week and yeah, start firing again. I have no doubts that he will.
The strength of the answer that you've just given and the questions that we've received, everything's tied together perfectly here, because you've started to kind of answer the questions that are coming up. So this one was for later, but you've started to kind of go there. So let's do it now. From Anthony, this one's from Threads. Do you think we should keep Ollie training/recovering at Bodymore rather than letting him go to England duty for a couple of meaningless National League games? Now, first, I don't know whether Villa have the control to say you're not going, because I think it's different that we had with the Olympics. Somebody replied to Anthony, I think, saying that that's not a FIFA/FA thing. So if England come calling, Villa just can't say, no, you're not going. They could do what you used to see back in the day. I don't think you get this as much now, of like, oh, international break, oh, I've got a lower back injury, like nothing really wrong with you, but oh, I'm going to stay at Villa. Yeah. If something like that came about, maybe, yes. But do you think it's worth Ollie Watkins going to England almost as a bit of a reset for him to kind of, which feels a bit weird because he kind of had that in the summer, hasn't he? He's been with England, now being back at Villa should have been the reset.
Yeah, but he said himself, didn't he, before he went to the Euros, he had a little bit of an issue, and then even out in Germany, like he was kind of managing it. So this is different. Now he is fit. He's obviously fit enough to starting games, and if he wasn't, I don't think he'd be playing, because we have someone like Jhon Duran who is clearly capable of leading the line from the off. I just think mentally that's where Watkins is, or where he can kind of fall down sometimes. We've heard it before from players. Again, I think it was John McGinn in the mix zone a couple of weeks ago saying that, you know, he's seen Ollie Watkins kind of beat himself up. He's very hard on himself. So again, it's up to the players to kind of rally around him and remind him of what an important player he is. And that's why I think mentally that's Watkins' biggest challenge. He obviously speaks to a psychologist a lot of the time as well. So he's got all the support he needs to get back into the rhythm as such. But I just think a change of environment sometimes can really benefit anyone, to be honest, not just necessarily athletes. So yeah, hopefully he can, you know, mix with different people and then come back, play with different players. Everything that I've just said previously, I think, is true. So yeah, I have no doubts that he'll be firing soon. I just think, again, with 3 games in, he's missed some great chances. But I'd rather see Ollie Watkins miss great chances now than barely get a kick and kind of have a scrappy few games. Then I'd be questioning, does he need to come out of the team because he doesn't look fit, basically?
Well, because we've been playing with 10, basically. If he's not contributing at all, you go, he's a real kind of problem now.
Yeah, but because he's getting chances, we know that he's sharp and he's alert. So that's the good thing. But not taking his chances, I think, is probably more of a mental thing of, you know, we know what Watkins is like. And again, I've said it before, I don't think he is a natural finisher as such, because he didn't play up front when he was 10 and coming through the youth teams. He was a winger. He was even made to be a fullback at one point for the Exeter team when he was coming through. So, yeah, not a natural finisher, but a player who's absolutely earned his stripes and will continue to lead the line for Villa, and hopefully, you know, banging the goals that will win us enough games to get in the Champions League again.
Yeah. What I said on the post-match show, just probably for your benefits, I assume you've not had time to listen, so I'll make the point quicker than I did on the show.
I did on the car coming back. took the wrong turn and I managed to listen to all of it in its entirety.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure you absolutely love the podcast as always. The point I made in there about like we're not as reliant on Watkins, like we don't have to carry him. This isn't Benteke or Grealish, and we're solely reliant on him. We've got 6 points out of the first 9 in a tricky start. Watkins hasn't contributed in terms of goals or assists, so that's kind of like we've been able to see Watkins through this hopefully sticky period.
I remember you said that, Dan, and I thought, wow, I mean, good thing we have Jhon Duran, because I don't think we would have had. What would we had? Maybe 4 points.
Scored the winners, hasn't he? So
yeah, maybe we'd see the game out against Leicester if we didn't get the second, because we would have been more stingy as such. Being 1-0 up as we were when we were 2-1 up, if that makes sense, with just a 1-goal advantage. And then the West Ham game, I don't think we'd have won if Duran didn't come on. So, yeah, we'd be in a worse, although it's only 3 games and it's only a couple of points, we'd be in a worse position without Duran. And I do think that throughout the season, again, Watkins might score 6 in his next 6, but then he might go 3 games without scoring. Duran may come in that run and score twice again. Like over the course of the season, I do think Duran will play an absolutely crucial part in terms of the impact that he has. So, yeah, to have those 2 strikers. And I mentioned this in my little post-match debrief at the stadium after the full-time whistle. Have Villa got? This might sound mad. Have Villa got the best 2 strikers in the league?
It was the best 2 left backs in the league a couple of weeks ago. It's the best 2 strikers as well now.
Go on, name me a better pair.
I mean, instantly, all the names that come to my head are like the main guys. Obviously, got Haaland, Isak, but then like, who's Newcastle's backup? Man City don't have one.
Man City playing such a weird and bizarre way.
Yeah, you can kind of forget about them, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. Look, when I said the left back thing, I thought, well, they don't play with left backs because they're that kind of, look at us. It's the same for the strike situation. Haaland's probably good as 3 strikers. So kind of ignore City. That's out of the. But in terms of, Liverpool as well, they play with kind of fluid strikers, so it's hard to say. But I don't think there's a better strike. It's in number 9s, Ollie Watkins and Jhon Duran. There's no better strike partnership than that. There can't be. Unless you're looking at Isak and maybe Callum Wilson, but I don't think Callum Wilson is the player that he was even a year ago. So
no.
I think we've probably got the best strike partnership. If you see where I'm going with it, I'm not saying we have the best 9, absolutely not. But out and out number 9s.
The Duran thing is interesting. Obviously, the kind of pros and cons of doing a podcast throughout a football season where things change and we're talking a lot about different things. Like it only feels like a month ago, maybe we're doing a video about Jhon Duran doing the Irons thing and saying, has he got a future with the club? And, he's a disgrace and all this kind of stuff. To a month later saying...
I was just saying, what we said on that was he may or may not, but it all depends about how he returns to Bodymore and what he does. And according to everyone within the club that I've spoken to and that we've heard publicly as well, like McGinn and like Emery, his attitude has been really good, and the way he carries himself has been noticeably different to when he ended last season. Basically, like I was watching him sulk with Ollie Watkins on the pitch at Palace and kind of just mope around, kind of trudge off the pitch. And I thought even then, if a big comes in, there's every chance he goes. But Villa know what an incredible talent they have with him. It's worth putting up for, basically. And Emery called it youngsters' mistakes. I think everyone was a bit surprised that he didn't just get slammed basically in that press conference. But I think it's kind of been a man management masterclass, really, by Emery and by the club as well, because they know that they need to treat this player in a certain way because of different reasons. And now I do think we are seeing the benefits of us basically being loyal with him. And I think other players, we would have just kind of accepted it and moved them on. But we know that Duran is worth fighting for, essentially.
Yeah. And let's not forget, he's wanted to leave, and in 12 months he may still want to leave if for whatever reason. But as of right now, we spoke about the McGinn interview last year about he's a bit of a nightmare to play, a bit of a nightmare to have in your team. To see the McGinn interview now about his attitude's changed, he's firing him in on the training pitch, like he looks different, he's different with staff and things like that. All the kind of concerns that we had in that has Jhon Duran got a future video have kind of been put to bed already. He's come into the games and scored goals to win us points. His attitude and training, his relationship with teammates, or whatever it is, everything seems to have improved. So whatever the long-term future is for Duran, whether it's with us or isn't, as of right now, he's fulfilling the role that he's paid to do exactly. Ollie Watkins is not firing, so he's coming off the bench and winning us points, and also doing it in a way that everybody around him at the club is going, well, you know what, Jhon Duran, he's a different man. He's a different character. He's grown up a little bit. And that's exactly what Villa needed out of the situation. And that's, like I say, for us to cover everything and do podcasts 4 or 5 times a week, we are going to have different opinions. I was very much like, Duran's a bit of a liability, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe he shouldn't play for us. Yeah, just accept the bid. Whereas now I'm thinking, I'm glad he stayed because he's going to contribute, and whilst he's an Aston Villa player, I'll support him.
Yeah, and any supporter like yourself, that I'm not trying to, but I absolutely didn't blame anyone for thinking that either, because it was so disrespectful to the fans, players, managers, literally anyone who's got a connection to Villa, for Duran to do that, and he knew what he was doing. But I think we can all just admire Emery as not just as a coach, but as his man management and his experience in that situation, to think, okay, you know what? No, don't accept that bid, because we think he'll be £100 million player in, I don't know, 5 years. That's just because of the way football is. I believe that they know that they've got something that is worth, as I say, fighting on for and giving support to. He's kind of, don't want to say it's on his last warning as such, but you know, if in 2 years' time he kind of goes back to where he was and is the kind of immature player that we really don't need, then I'd understand it. But I think they're probably seeing signs of progression, like John McGinn is. Yeah, his quotes, by the way, are on Birmingham Live if you haven't seen them as of last night. There's some really kind of honest stuff in there about Duran from McGinn. Again, as you said, Danny was kind of threw him in don't say threw him in the bus a little bit. After the Liverpool game, he was very strong, though, wasn't he? He said he's a nightmare to play against and to play with. And I thought, that is a bit, not that he didn't. It was a bit unnecessary, I think, because of the moment that we had. But McGinn, I think, is showing as well, by the way, of what a kind of what a leader he's becoming, because he can even kind of address his own maybe mistakes in the heat of the moment. He probably didn't need to say that.
Okay, next question from Craig, also on Threads, says, do you think we're going to end up with an Ings-Watkins situation with Duran and Watkins, where Watkins loses confidence because he isn't the main man anymore? Is there any kind of signs, do you think, that because Duran is coming in as an understudy and outperforming Watkins so far, that maybe Watkins does have this kind of almost mentality of, if I'm not the main man, I can't turn it on?
Yeah, I definitely think there is an element to that, to be honest, and that's why I mentioned it earlier. Maybe he kind of needs to...
He needs to go and be the backup, basically, to kind of
have a different experience for a little period.
Yeah.
Say, I don't know if Jhon Duran's going on international duty. My guess would be that he is, because he was with Colombia in the Copa America, and he's doing very well for us. So I guess Duran is going away anyway. But yeah, for me, I just think Watkins needs to take him out of the situation a little bit, kind of get a bit of confidence from playing with England. And again, I've just said everything there. But yeah, I do worry about that a little bit. I think when Watkins said it publicly as well, I was a bit like, oh, okay, well, the likelihood is that will happen again in his career, because Villa are going places, and that we can't just have one striker in our squad. That would be negligent, really. So yeah, he now faces that same issue, I suppose, and we know that it's affected him before. Hopefully it won't affect him again. I don't know. I think the reasons why Watkins aren't scoring again, I think it's mental, and he hasn't had a pre-season. He wasn't quite fit at the start anyway, because he missed the Dortmund match playing against West Ham. And, was he fully fit? I doubt it. So yeah, hopefully after this international break, we're going to see a bit more of what we know of Ollie Watkins. What I would say is, if he didn't score against Wolves, Everton, Ipswich, and Duran was coming off the bench and having a better impact again, I think you're getting into the situation where that is more of a conversation.
Let's move on to another question. Ads from Twitter says, why can't we keep clean sheets at the moment? Is this going to be a problem at some point, do you think?
Yeah, if I knew it, I'd tell him in the presser, and hopefully he'd listen to me. No. It is a problem, because we haven't kept one for a long time, and back in the last season it was Wolves that we kept one. I forget the other one, which is frustrating.
Arsenal was later than Wolves.
Yeah, so one clean sheet at home in a little while, and then the Emirates clean sheet, which that was just an outstanding result. But you're right, it's not doesn't seem very consistent or sustainable what we're doing in terms of trying to keep clean sheets. It doesn't feel like we're going to keep clean. I mean, to be fair, Everton and Wolves at home is a great opportunity to do that, I think. But in any other game, if it was other teams, maybe more tricky teams or away from home, I wouldn't suggest we'd be keeping clean sheets at all, because there's just no evidence to suggest that we would at the moment, unfortunately. It doesn't help that we've got a couple of defensive issues as well. But I have no specific answer to it. I think if Emery did, then obviously that would help a lot. But maybe... I don't want to keep going back to Kamara, but I'd like to think we'd be able to be more solid, I think, shall I say, in the next maybe after the next month when Kamara comes back. I'd like to see what we're like then. What that means for the rest of the team, I don't know. Obviously, Mink's coming back as well, but I don't expect him to be starting matches. But yeah, that is a worry because we can't keep scoring twice or 3 times in a match to win it, which is the case at the moment.
Kind of interlinked to that one from Adrian, also Twitter, says winning games when playing poorly is that sign of a top 6 club, especially away from home. I kind of associate keeping clean sheets and being hard to beat with top sides, big clubs, or whatever you want to call it. Winning games when not playing well, that's the same, isn't it? That's a sign of a big club. That's a sign of a top side.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw that a lot last season. I think we weren't outstanding in every game that we played. In some matches, we just got over the line somehow. And yeah, I was just driving back from the Leicester game. I was thinking the thing that I love about, well, there's a lot of things that I love about my job at the moment, but just the away games, man. It's going to an away stadium and just winning, and then hearing all the fans boo afterwards, and you're going home thinking like, yeah, we just stolen points off someone basically. I hope it feels different because we're kind of expected to win every home game, barring a couple, I suppose. But away from home in the Premier League, like genuinely, when Emery says it, it's so true that every match is really difficult. And even the Leicester game, I know you said 4-0 and I said 3-1, which we could have won 3-1 if we scored at the end or whatever. But yeah, at any point in those games, there'll be, I don't know, maybe in the whole 90 minutes, 30 minutes of it might be you under pressure and you having to defend and them having big chances. At the end of the Leicester game, when Vardy gets fouled in the box, he's offside. But I was thinking, we conceded it. But even then, the flag goes up and yes, it was offside. But it just feels like, this is going to sound silly, but it feels like some things go for us away from home. We deserve it because we play well and we defend well. But even little things sometimes just kind of fall in our favour. But that's because we're a good team and that we have those little margins where our offside trap is perfect. But other teams, they'd concede that late goal because they didn't push up correctly or whatever it may be. Like the difference between us and Tottenham is that Tottenham didn't take the chance in the first half and let Leicester back in, and they couldn't cope with Leicester fans' clappers. Do you know, it's that sort of stuff, but we can. Do you know what I mean? We score in both halves. Jhon Duran makes a great impact. We have injuries, but we get over it. We're playing right back in his first game. And I think Bogard did very well. There's clearly aspects that he needs to work on, but I'm not going to criticise him whatsoever. I thought he settled in the game straight away. 2 really good tackles in the first 6 minutes. Obviously, struggled a little bit more against Mavididi, but that's to be expected. There's plenty to be encouraged by there. But yeah, that wasn't Villa's best side. It wasn't the best performance, but they win the game. So that's literally what matters. And I'd expect us to be doing that throughout the season, hopefully. And if we do, that is a top 6 team, because Man United may not have won that game. Tottenham didn't win it. Who else? Chelsea. I mean, these teams I'd expect to win at Leicester, by the way. But in terms of the context of it, a youngster at right back or whatever it may be, your striker.
The specifics that you said earlier about Villa having 2 good strikers. If Højlund isn't doing it, is Man United's second choice going to come on and do what Duran did? Which, by the way, Man United's example is specific to others as well. If Solanke doesn't score for Spurs, does for Richarlison, etc. I don't think I gave enough credit to Duran's header. Do you remember the one, Watkins' one against Bournemouth last year? When I was like, that's a world-class header. Duran's was excellent.
This is what I put in my match report or talking points. Can't quite remember now. But I was trying to describe it and I thought, what was that like? And I was like, oh yeah. When I was at Bournemouth, I literally saw the same thing. And it was different, obviously, in some ways, different area of the box.
Yeah.
It was very, kind of had no right.
The header's done the work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic header. And it was one of those where the ball came in the box from Dean, good cross. But when the ball, as soon as it come off Duran's head, I had my head down because I knew it was going to go in, writing my report or whatever. So, yeah, fantastic header from Duran.
That's a new cliche, isn't it? Like when I knew it was in as soon as it left his foot. You're like, I started typing as soon as it left his head.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's stick with the defence then. Elena on Twitter asks, I know you touched on it on the post-match, but do you feel like we've left ourselves short in defence? 1 injury to Concert or Torres and we're playing the kids. What I said in the post-match for those that didn't listen was, the example in that was 1 injury to Watkins and we're screwed, basically. You can say that for most key positions about most sides. One key injury to Guimaraes and Newcastle are screwed. 1 key injury to Haaland and, well, maybe not Man City, but do you know what I mean? 1 key injury to 1 big player is going to leave most sides wanting a little bit.
Yeah, but I think this is a bit more pertinent because I don't think we're particularly strong in that area of the pitch when we're fully fit. And I think we needed a bit more, but as we said in the deadline day / Leicester preview episode, Villa did absolutely everything that they possibly could to get a player in, i.e. Geertruida, who can cover those positions, centre back and right back, which would have been a perfect signing. But unfortunately, they couldn't sell Carlos. Carlos picked up an injury before the window ended, which basically ended all chance of him leaving the club. Obviously, a move has to be right for him. Villa can't just, set up a move and put him somewhere. That's obviously not going to happen. It's not allowed. So, yeah, that's the big shame of the window, really. But again, trust me, talking to people in the club and recently, Villa have pushed the envelope here. Like their budget, they maxed out. They've done absolutely everything they could. What they had to bring in that player, they had to make space and make room financially, and they simply couldn't. So, yeah, it is a shame. But and we went through previously, Dan, as well, and there's questions about, well, we should have prioritised that at the start. But if you go through every deal that Villa did, there was like a domino to those deals. If Villa could select 5 positions and buy those players first, like ball manager, they probably would, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, we'll talk about transfers more on the next episode that we do. Dr. OFC on Twitter asks, if we have changed our system in the way that we build up, which means Konsa is no longer an option at right back, why play Bogard there instead of Nedeljkovic?
In this match specifically, Emery's clearly seen something that he wanted to mitigate against. And I think going away from home, Leicester have some very tricky wingers as well. Fata was a good player. Luca Dean did very well against him, I thought. And Mavididi, when he came on, I think we saw what a good player he is. And I don't know why he wasn't starting. Jordan Ayew didn't get anything out of Bogard, to be fair. So I think it worked for me. He put one in on Ayew, or two tackles in him, in the first few minutes against Ayew. He was physical with him, Bogard, and I think he played very well against Ayew. Mavididi, different kind of kettle of fish, really. And again, for a Premier League game, you're going to tire, you're going to mentally fatigue on 60 minutes, etc. So, right to bring on Nedeljkovic when he did, but I think actually it proved that Emery's decision to play Bogard over Nedeljkovic worked. I think because, not a whole lot happened down that side. I think going forward, there's a bit that Bogard can work on. But what I liked about him was he was confident, and it didn't feel like it was his debut. Like sometimes he'd be going forward and playing in build up as if he's been playing in that team for a long time. And I know he's only played a few pre-season games, but even then you can see he's already learning about his teammates, and he's involved in the build-up. They trust him as well. So that was good to see. Yeah, defensively, there's a few things to work on, but again, like to be expected. I think the same would have happened to Nedeljkovic. As we saw against West Ham, Nedeljkovic struggled a little bit after he came on, but these guys are really young. And we can talk about the positives, but ultimately, Villa are light because Cash is injured. Sometimes he'll be injured a few times in a season. I'm not sure. I don't doubt this will be the last time that Bogard and Nedeljkovic are called on. Carlos is injury prone as well, so Konsa is going to have to stay at centre back for the most part, and that's what Emery wants, to be fair. But we are lacking options there. That is a massive worry for me. Yeah.
Gareth says, Emi Martinez is the obvious answer, but which outfield player would you give the captaincy to in John McGinn's absence? I'm going to go with Amadou Onana, leads by example, and does the media side very well, which I quite like because there's a bit of extra thought in this to Gareth, who as a captain will have to do some media duties, and Amadou Onana does seem to have a knack for that. Feels like a bit of an odd one, doesn't it, so soon into a player's career that you're touting them for a potential captaincy. It's played 3 games for us, but it would feel like Onana is a good kind of captain material at just the age of 22. Yeah,
well, firstly, when you go through the team, you could probably make an argument on most players. Tielemans is experienced and is a good leader, same as Bailey now. Yeah, even Ollie Watkins leads by example rather than being that vocal presence. I would probably say Ezri Konsa if it was not Martinez or McGinn, because while there's stuff said about him previously about when Mings got injured, he said like it's kind of my job now to step up and be that vocal presence at the back. Obviously I'm not playing on the pitch, I don't hear everything that's going on, but I'd imagine that he's kind of growing into that a bit more, or has grown into that over the last 12 months, because Villa they're completely dependent on him, to be honest. Same for Torres in many ways, very similar, experienced player too, but Konsa's been here for so long now, and has grown into his role on the pitch, off the pitch as well, being that experienced pro. And I'm sure he's key on the training pitch, for example, and helping other players, younger players as well. He was on the same side as Bogard. against Leicester, and I'm sure he was kind of not coaching him through it, but giving him encouragement, etc., etc. So yeah, I'd probably say Konsa.
Penultimate question in the football section. Rob on Twitter asks, given the players who are coming back from injuries, if for the last game of the season we needed 3 points to secure 4th place and we have a fully fit squad, how many of the starting 11 at Leicester would be in the starting 11 for that game?
So I'll say Maatsen as one change. Powell and Konsa stay the same. Cash would be the right back, presumably. Kamara would be in the 11, so 3 changes. I know it's really difficult because you've got to start dropping players, and I really don't want to do it. It's honestly, mate, it's so difficult because I think Yuri Tielemans has been our best player so far this season. I think he's been exceptional in all 3 games. John McGinn, I'm not dropping because, and Emery said after the match, if you need a player to just do a shift where, like when Bailey got injured, he obviously had no Philogene on the bench either. McGinn goes to the right and it's fine. Like, there's just no issue. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm stuck on 3 changes already. And I think the defence is easy to work out, plus Kamara, but then anything further forward, I've done half of it, you do the rest.
I think my rogue shout / prediction is that I don't think Bailey will be as involved by the end of the season.
I think he has to be. Though. I just think Bailey's incredible. I don't know, you think that as well, but I don't think you can have a team without Bailey, surely.
Yeah, I'm almost kind of working backwards. That I agree with all the changes you said so far, including Kamara.
Right, really difficult.
So how do you then fit in Onana, who has to play? Tielemans has to play. McGinn, I think, has to play. Rodgers has to play, and obviously Watkins. Then you've got Ramsey,
even Ramsey, who's looking like the player that we know he is.
Exactly. And like if you were to kind of say Ramsey's perfectly on form now and as playing well for us, how much is he worth? I'd instantly go, well, at least 60 million. So how does that not get in either?
Yeah,
so that's kind of just pushed Bailey. And Bailey's incredible. I'm not saying he's bad, but I just, as a wild kind of prediction now on the 2nd of September, I think by the end of the season, maybe we see Bailey start to be phased out a bit. Maybe his injury issues come back. Like we've already seen him pick up an injury. Maybe that's the thing again.
You're trying to think of excuses to drop him?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of excuses to include the other players, not drop Bailey.
And that's why it's so difficult, because I can't sit here and say Tielemans won't start, McGinn won't start, or Bailey won't start, or Rodgers won't start. It's literally impossible for me to say those things right now. So I'm not going to have a go at you for saying it, Dan, but I can't see Bailey not being in an 11. I think is so important. The thought of not having him against Everton or Wolves, and although those games are winnable, I just think, that's exactly what we need in those games. A player to hug the wing, attract markers, come inside, play a ball, lose players. I just think, we need him. So, I literally can't answer the question. I mean, maybe in the... there's no explanation. If whoever you drop, there will be... I don't know, 20-30% of there's probably 30% of people who are watching for each player who would say what are you talking about? And that's what I was going to say, because I literally can't make an argument to suggest. Good problems for sure.
Yeah, of course. Let's move on to the final question. This is from Aidan on Twitter, and you said the defence was easy to fix. So let's see how you tackle this question. He says, can you build an Unai Emery team with Mings, Konsa and Torres at the back? If so, what does that look like?
I mean, I can try, but I think it would affect the rest of the team. So for me, I don't think that's something that we would do. I just think Konsa and Powell, are the 2 that he's going to go with and that he should go with. I think if you put Mings in that, you could possibly put Konsa at right back, but then you'd have 2 left footers in build up. And we've said it before. I don't like that personally. I don't think Emery does either. It's just how you receive the ball, but your body shape. Like we've seen already just from the first 3 games of this season how important those kind of pressing triggers are. As soon as the ball goes to Mings, you probably have 3 players onto him straight away, because they all know that they can funnel him onto that left foot and you just block that passing lane. It's one poor pass with his right foot and we give the ball away in the final third. I'm not saying that would happen every time. It definitely wouldn't, because Mings is too good of a player to keep giving the ball away on his right foot. But doing it once could be one too many times, basically. I don't think you could really play it. I know in pre-season last summer, we had Powell playing as that kind of left back that Konsa did at right back, if that makes sense. And Mings was in the middle of Konsa, and that was the 3. But it didn't look particularly great in pre-season. I'm not sure how that would work anyway, because then what happens to Maatsen and then Dean and other players, how does the dynamic work? It's not something I really kind of look at and think, yeah, that would work, or it would be better than what we're doing now. Personally, I think the way that we do it, if we had a fully fit team, is you'd have Pau and Konsa, and then Kamara would drop back into a 3. I think that's the best. I think I've said that before. That kind of protection there of when we got the ball, that's your 3 basically at the back, and the rest plays. That's how I would do it. And that sounds a bit harsh because Mings basically isn't going to look in for me, but we have a squad for a reason, and he will be playing games when he is fully fit to do so, because we have so many matches to play. I looked at the calendar earlier and I was thinking, we've got to play 6 games in this month, then 6 games in that month, and then I realised, but we've got the Carabao Cup. If we win there, that'll be 7 games, 8 games in December. Like, it's a really, really hectic calendar, so we will need Mings for sure. But if you're building your best possible team, while Mings hasn't played for a year and we got Champions League last season, he knows himself that he's going to have to kind of earn his place back, and that's just the way football is. So, I don't think you can play those 3. I mean, you can make it work, but would it be better than what we have now? I don't think so.
He's a victim of circumstances, isn't he? Tyrone Mings getting the injury at that time was probably the worst possible time.
I would love to see how the dynamic would have worked with him and Torres. I don't know what would have happened there, what Emery has planned, because obviously he brought Torres in for a reason, and we've seen why, because he's extremely good on the ball. Mings was extremely good on the ball as well, to be fair, in the season where we got the Europa Conference League. Pau, I think, is probably the best at it in Europe, or definitely up there. So, for Mings, he's definitely got a role to play, 100%. But we'll see how he goes in the coming months. He's back in training now, by the way, since last Friday.
Silly question time. There's 2, John, but they're pretty short. That's why I've picked 2. So we'll get through these quickly. Okay. First up, Alberto Solano says, "What would John rather fight?" Classic of the genre. A hippo-sized chicken or a chicken-sized hippo?
Hold on, a hippo-sized chicken. Oh, yeah, easily the second one. Put it this way, if you have the population of the Earth, what percentage of people would lose the fight against the chicken-sized hippo or the hippo-sized chicken? It would be drastically different, I think, for the chicken-sized hippo.
Yeah, I think with all of these questions, the smaller sized bad, because a hippo is obviously more dangerous than a chicken, but the smaller sized animal is always the choice. There's no smaller sized bad animal that is harder to fight than the bigger sized, easier animal. Like, I could fight a chicken easier than a hippo, but it's the bigger one that's the problem. It's bigger.
Yeah, I think you're right. The way you've said it kind of got me thinking about, of course.
It could be a small shark, but it's still small, isn't it? So that's the thing.
But if it's a small shark, I think you'd be done anyway, because that means you're in water.
Well, yeah, shark's a bad example. I was just trying to think of like a serious predator.
Serious predator.
Let's go to the other one from Daniel, who says, "They say you can last 5 weeks without food, 5 days without water. How long could you last without the internet?"
Probably say 2 hours.
Yeah.
People are probably thinking, you this and that. But like, we're talking like general life, right? I'm not on a desert island. You know, when you go on holiday or something, can you obviously not allowed on your phone, or you can't access your network or whatever when you're 30,000 feet in the air. Like, the first thing I do is always like check all my notifications or check like the news and stuff, because who knows what could happen in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Especially when the transfer window's open. God, I'm so happy the window is closed from a work perspective.
Yes. When I went on the cruise, there's days at sea where like you've got no service at all, and we didn't pay for Wi-Fi because it was extortionately priced. And that was like, sometimes like I'd get like the last time I'd be able to send a message is when you set off from wherever you were, like 7 a.m. on the morning, and you might not be able to even receive the reply to that for like 48 hours. And that was like, as much as you're on holiday and you're doing stuff, and I'm not like glued to my phone, like just contacting family with pictures and stuff and checking news and whatever.
Yeah, you still need to be like connected to the world. I feel like I'm at the point now where like, or even the world itself, like I don't know, like 15 years ago, you might have been able to kind of get away with it if you go on holiday and not do any network and just say to someone, "Oh, I'm here now, see you in a week," and that's it. But now I feel like everything is so like important on here. That's everything.
Comment of the week now. This is from Paul on YouTube from last week's Monday show Q&A. Now, the bulk of the conversation last week was about off-the-pitch matters, and this is kind of Paul's experience of the off-the-pitch stuff. And I don't want to go into it too much because pretty much the whole of last week's episode was dedicated to it. And it's a long comment. I'm just going to read it, and then we can react to it as we see fit. As a Villa fan who's getting a bit long in the tooth, admittedly, I am for the first time in many years having to seriously consider if I can justify attending games. Dan's comments regarding the good faith of many fans ring true for me, but having looked at ticket prices for the upcoming Villa v Wolves last night, I feel £70 plus for nearly any seat in the ground is just too much. In 2023, the median annual earnings for full-time employees in the UK was 34,000, according to a quick search on the net. On the net. That's a phrase you don't hear too often. If you break down that average for an individual who is likely, for example, to afford to attend many games in the Championship when attendances were often not above 35,000 on a cold, wet day in mid-January, or perhaps could afford the odd game last season watching the European matches, probably can't even begin to consider attending this year. As good as the recent performances have been, if you factor in the concourse issues, overpriced crap beer in plastic, poor food, horrid toilets, the inconsiderate fan vaping next to you, the transport issues, the club needs to be careful. It's not anywhere near as attractive an experience as it should be, and people's funds are already stretched. That was the polite version.
Yeah, precisely. Fans are being priced out of football. Their experience at Villa Park hasn't been good so far. You could probably ask the 40,000 fans that go, and they'll probably have a complaint about something. That's unfortunately what it is. We're trying our best to kind of get stuff to the club. I mean, if anyone's got any complaints and stuff, send it to my email address, which is john.townley@reachplc.com. If you have any complaints and stuff, do send it my way, because there's a few things that I'm going to be raising different to what Paul's just said there. But if there are any other issues, then let me know, because we can obviously ask. Obviously can't change the world or anything, and I mean that's impossible. It's up to the club to change things, but we can at least put it to them, etc. If there are any issues that are going on that we aren't aware of already, that we haven't discussed. So yeah, there's a lot to I mean, you're right, Dan. We did a whole episode on it, so that kind of covered our thoughts there, I suppose.
That's in for this week's Monday show. John, thanks for joining me as always. Thanks to the brilliant questions for getting involved as always. Some really good topics discussed. Our next episode will be Wednesday morning. We're going to do another Q&A. John and I are going to film another episode all about transfers this time. A bit more of a reflection on the window, deadline day, where we're light, where we're stacked, all that kind of stuff. Thank you for watching this one, as always, or listening on podcast feeds. Remember that all the information for the NordVPN discount is in the link down below, as well as any of the stories or comments that John has mentioned as well.